With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtual Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your virtual pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
It's the Smucker's Uncrustables podcast with your host, Uncrustables. Okay, today's guest is rough around the edges. Please welcome Crust.
Thanks for having me.
Today's topic, he's round with soft, pillowy bread.
Hey.
Filled with delicious PB&J.
Are you talking about yourself?
And you can take him anywhere.
Why'd you invite?
And we are out of time.
Are you really cutting me off?
Uncrustables are the best part of the sandwich. Sorry, Crust.
Welcome to Horror Bytes on Safe Room, the show where we discuss the smaller scares and teenier terrors available to play on your PC. Each week we pick one or two bite-sized horror games and have a suitably short and sweet chat about them. I'm Neil Bolt, and wishing he could turn time is my co-host Jay Krieger. How you doing, Jay?
Doing very well, man. I'm trying not to stray too far from the path this week.
It is. Before we get into that, of course, if you do like the sound of what we played, the show notes include a link to the game that we've discussed, and as ever, if you enjoy them, please consider supporting the developers by donating, wishlisting their future projects, or simply sharing everything you can about them, as it all helps to build the next generation of horror game developers. This week we are stuck on a night loop from developer Alfred Wooden. Night Loop is described as a dark fantasy roguelike survival puzzle game that traps you in an endless nightmare. Players need to navigate a cursed fog shroud path of 16 tiles as a weary peasant caught in a supernatural torment where the wolves prowl, zombies shamble, and vampires thirst for blood. So, in describing this game, it's beyond that. It's sort of on an isometric plane, white background, and your character basically automatically goes round this sort of square base, and all the while you can sort of add things to them, and there are obstacles coming up that can cause you problems. So, for instance, if you see a zombie and you don't have the right tools to defeat or get past it, then you lose a couple of health. You get infected, and different things happen for different things like vampires and whatever. And stuff like being infected vampires also causes problems for you as you go around, like health if you're infected for the next 4 moves, for instance. As I said, along the way, including holy water and a rifle and potion. So it's like, it's basically like a little loop version of a roguelike. Interesting, strangely compelling as well. I think when we were talking about this before we went on, Jay, you were saying about how you kind of lost a while to playing this game, and coming back to it again and again, did you?
I did, yeah. It was there was a real like pick up and play kind of aspect with this game that I really enjoyed. That being like, okay, how far into the loop can I get, kind of a thing. What I really also appreciated was that it's not just the fact that the further you progress, the challenge becomes greater in terms of the types of threats you'll face, or I suppose the more frequently with which those threats will appear and whatnot. And you really have to be a little bit more discerning in how you spend your cash to buy whatever assortment of upgrades come about. Like, it's more that, you get this new pathway that can make that process of dealing with those threats a little bit more sort of just like, oh, okay, now I even have to look further ahead more to see like the trajectory of the path and how that takes.
Yeah.
And so from that aspect, I liked it as a puzzler. I think first and foremost, though, like I loved the look of Night Loop.
Yes, very much so.
You know, it reminded me a little bit, not to the same degree, but it did remind me a little bit of like Hitman Go, where Hitman Go, you kind of have this isometric viewpoint on this puzzle. Essentially, this one, Night Loop, being a little bit more similar to like tower defense almost, where, you know, you're on this preset path and then things pop up and you have to, you know, basically put your buildings that help you in the positive ahead of whatever the threat is, as you were saying.
Yes, exactly.
But at the same time, like I thought it just had that really unique kind of look to it that was cool. And I liked the little animations that they had that gave each of those upcoming threats identifiable personalities and very easy to decipher what they are, which is important in any kind of puzzler, right? That has a threat involved. You need to be able to identify very quickly. I suppose the only thing, and maybe it's more of a me problem, but like maybe some of the tools of survival could have a little, like when you hover over them, it could pop up a description of them of what it helps. Like I confused holy water and silver cross a couple of times in terms of like what they were used for, in terms of obviously they're both in relation to vampires, but couldn't remember at one point, like, does the silver cross ward them off or does the holy water do that as well? Because that also works. So like that little type of a thing perhaps could help just kind of like remind players. And also like the green potion could tell you how much it heals you and whatnot, or perhaps the various threats that you face. It'll give you a reminder of like, oh, obviously vampires, there's a chance of vampirism, but zombies, chance of infection, that type of a thing. So like those little types of really important pieces of information for the player could maybe appear in the game's UI in some way other than, you know, what I was doing, which was just scrolling down to the bottom of the screen, which, you know, if you have enough time to do that, that's not an issue. But when you get to, you know, the fourth or fifth round, so to speak, that can become a little bit cumbersome, and, you know, every second really counts there. But yeah, I suppose other than that, like I thought this game had a really great score to it, which maybe aids a little bit of the sort of like pick up and play nature of it. I don't know. It just has that sort of loop to it that is both indicative of the horror theme here, but it also is a little bit less tense. It's a little bit more gamey, might sound like a put down, but it's more kind of just like, oh, this music that reminds you like you're playing a game that kind of has that arcadey feel to it, I suppose. So
very much so.
This was one that I enjoyed a lot. I think maybe there needs to be a little bit of balancing too, perhaps, in terms of just like the threats that pop up and ensuring that early on you don't lead with like three threats and then the player only has the ability at that point to like buy one type of item. I just found that there were a couple of instances where I found like I was going into my second or third rounds and I was already like near death just because of how, you know, it's poor luck of the draw with the cards for rewards, and I hadn't had enough opportunities to earn gold. So maybe a little bit of balancing in that regard. But I found it to be a strong concept, and it looks great, sounds great. It's definitely something that I could see myself playing, you know, once it's had a couple of passes with patches and updates and things like that.
That's it. Yeah, and you know, as with many games, I think this is a game jam game as well. So it's which I think the developers have been sort of adding and tweaking little bits as they've gone on. Yeah, I'm with you like on what you were saying as well, because I do feel it kind of upsets the rhythm sometimes when you have that sort of bad run, effectively, where you never really get into the groove of it. But it's like, the good thing is when you do have like a good run of things, it does kind of smooth out, and you get that sort of compelling thing of coming back and trying again and hoping that it's better this time. So even when you have the bad runs, you do kind of play through it to kind of get to the next good one, if you will. So, which, you know, it's not so much a feature, but you know, it's a good way of keeping you on the hook, I suppose, for what it does. And a shout out to the game's title screen as well, just that sort of using that same idea of like these sort of raised floors effectively to make the title, which feels nice and thematic and really nicely well designed in that regard. But but yeah, this was a fun little one, and I do think it's it would work quite well on mobile. Yeah, that's the best thing about this one. I think is that you could see this just being on the Play Store or whatever, and being quite a decent little addition to that as well. So, especially as you say, with a few tweaks here and there, which again, being a game jam thing, that's natural. I think you kind of have to make those sacrifices here and there to get it out as it is. But yeah, good stuff. So, but that is all we have for this week. So, thank you again, Jay, for talking these short horror games with me. And of course, as ever, if you, the listener, have a short horror game, a demo, a game jam entry, or a proof of concept that you think we should be highlighting, you can email us at saferoompod@gmail.com. And Jay, a Blue Sky handle?
At Safe Room Pod for show updates.
Yeah, that's it. You'll see all the information about what we got in the pipeline coming soon. But until that time, we'll be back with more small scale horrors next week.